Welcome back to Etheria Restart. Today I'm here to talk about Shadow Sania, break down how she's built and where she can excel inside of the game. And to do this, I'm here with Hermes, as always, who guides me through the game as well as helps to guide you. Before I go any further, I need to thank Etheria Restart for sponsoring today's video. And if you guys are on the fence, not sure if you should download the game, first of all, I recommend you do. Second, use this QR code or my link in the description. It's going to get you 10 free summons upon downloading the game, which is great because maybe you can pull in a nice animus on day one. But Hermes, I'm really excited. Shadow Sania, I believe, was the first light dark animus I pulled on this account when we first started playing the game. Was that right? I think we did it in a video as well.
Yeah, she was the very first one that you got. And then of course, if you look at her prowess, not only have you pulled one of them, I think you've also pulled a few dupes. You've pulled, 3 dupes.
Yeah.
So technically you have pulled 4 Shadow Sanias. She is like your favorite animus of the whole game because you pulled so many of them.
She better be for how many I've pulled on this account. But all right, so we've been using her in different areas of the game. I want you to kind of take everyone through and guide as to what's the best way to utilize her. And hopefully a lot of people have gotten her unlocked as we have.
Yeah. So she is the queen of DOT or dot damage. Also, that's the damage over time. It will be compared in other games to things like poisons or burns, stuff like that. Things that when an enemy takes a turn, they get a certain amount of damage. You can get multiple stacks built up, and then that does more damage, that kind of thing. So what makes her really good is that is basically all her kit is focused on. So when we go, I think we should obviously talk about her skills first, just because that's most important. And it's funny because her S1 is actually probably the most valuable part of her whole kit. And as you see, you fully lasted out as you should. And the reason why, so she has a 50% chance to put 1 stack of dot, but she has a passive ability, and that passive ability gets increased as you upgrade the lattice, but at its max where you have it. What you have it as is it puts 1 stack of dot for 2 turns on a target anytime that animus, that the Shadow Sania, deals damage. So what that means is that on this A1, you have the potential, you're guaranteed to put out 1 stack unless it gets resisted, which is why you need a lot of effect accuracy. But you also then have a possibility to put out 2 on this A1 ability. So you can put out 2 stacks of dot on a single A1, which is crazy in of itself just to have that. But then also that she can then put basically a passive stack of dot onto enemies on every single move she makes is also really impactful and powerful to have.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I like how you compared it to poison or to fire. That's what a lot of people understand and know from turn-based strategy games. So as you said, we went in and upgraded this S1 as the primary, but we spoke about this a little bit earlier. The S2 and the S3, they're not just throwaway skills. They're also important as well. So let's dive into the S2 and see what that one looks like. And we could talk about maybe what's the future of Shadow Sania on this account and what's that going to look like in the future.
So this one is actually really interesting as well, because what this does is it deals all enemy damage to all enemies, and it extends all of the dot stacks that they have on them by an additional turn. So let's say that you've done like 3 A1s with Shadow Sania, and you've got a total of like 5 stacks of dot. Each of those 5 stacks is their own considered little debuff part, right? So each of those debuffs gets extended by an additional turn. So, and obviously this does, again, a percentage of HP. So I think, what is it, 4%? Yeah, 4% of the max HP. So if you were to extend 5 dots over an additional turn, that would equal out to an additional 20% HP dealt just from those 5 stacks, just on this one move. You could have the potential to do, granted, if you get a bunch of stacks lined up, but I think 5 is a pretty reasonable number, especially in the team we're going to be using her in. You get 5 stacks lined up, or 5 different debuffs lined up. You extend all 5 of those by 1 additional turn, and again, you're looking at an additional 20% max HP dealt, which is crazy to think about how much damage that really is.
Yeah, for sure. And the reason why it's not upgraded right now is because we have to make choices on where we spend lattice inside of the game. We can't just upgrade every animus all the way to max, so we have to figure out where's the most value. Obviously, we feel the S1 has the most value right here on Shadow Sania, But I like how you broke down the S2. Definitely has some value, and we'll probably get some lattice earned over time as well. Let's take a look at this S3 to kind of finish out her skills.
So her S3 is also, so she is really good at speed farming, both threshold, okay, like she's really good at speed farming Terramatan, as well as basically all of the what are they called, like the shell boss, that's what they are. Oh my goodness.
That's okay.
I'm losing myself today. But she's really good at those. And so what this ability does is I think it's to say rectify, whatever it says, it basically says she activates all curses. Ooh, and she settles. That's the word. Settles all of their dot stacks. What that basically means is that she's just activating all the dot stacks on an enemy. So again, let's use that example of 5. Let's say each of those 5 stacks has 1 turn. She's just extended it to 2 turns. Technically, then what would happen is you'd have a total of 10 stacks of dot damage actively on the enemy animus. And so she would settle all of that damage and basically would just do 40% of their max HP in 1 move.
Wow. All right. So that crazy amounts of damage being dropped right there. That actually sounds insane. Makes me want to throw some lattice into it right now. All right, but a lot of it has to do with the modules that we've worked with her as well. And obviously we're going with speed with Swift Rush. We got some time weave on her as well. What are the most important pieces of gear that you want to put on Shadow Sania?
So especially where you're going to be using her to farm, it's going to be important you have her actually speed tuned. So you've been able to get like the full 12-piece set. I think it's like keeping her under 250. The big one, I think it's one we're actually going to show off, is as a team that we had recently theory crafted and gotten put together, was Shadow Flame Hoyan. Is that you've got to have them speed tuned. I think it's like under 250 speed. So the only other real stat you really are focused on after that is your effect accuracy. Once you've got your effect accuracy high enough and you've gotten enough speed, then you're just looking for HP and defense so that they can survive more hits and longer hits. So a big thing for you, especially with Terramatan Inferno, is going to be that you really need to just increase a lot of the HP and defense on the gear you're getting, so that you can kind of survive some more of the hits that Terramatan is throwing out against your animus. Because, when you're using a dot strategy, it's basically just, we're going to slowly put lots of stacks of dot damage on the enemies, and then just basically have to survive long enough for them to just kill themselves pretty much. And so that's really the goal for her, is just get enough speed on her and then get a good amount. I'd say like 150 or so effect accuracy is probably going to be good for her, depending on what you have for your shell passives, and then basically just throw everything else into your HP and defense.
All right, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, basically you're dropping the dot stacks and that damage is going to happen over time, so you need to survive that time. Really simple when you think about it and break it down that way, so thanks for that. And then we have the shell, and we're utilizing the Codex of Magic. Oh, is that just for speed? Why do you like the Codex of Magic?
So Codex of Magic actually basically negates the need to put lattices into her S3 or her S2 abilities, at least for, again, where you're using her right now. And the reason why is because what this does is it basically makes it so whatever move you do doesn't take any cooldowns. Then it's an 8-turn, then ability goes on an 8-turn cooldown. But this is very important because what it means it can happen is that the very first turn of the battle, you have her go after your other dot damage dealers, and then she'll be able to extend on her A2. She'll be able to use that A2 to extend all of the dot stacks. The Codex of Magic comes in, make sure she doesn't have to actually use any cooldowns. Then when she comes back around to her second turn, after everyone's gone and stacked up more dot damage, then she will extend it again. So that'll be really big for her, is just getting a lot of extension happening.
Yes.
And then that's really what this shell is there for. Obviously, speed is passive 1. And then you'll see passive number 3, you can get a couple different ones, such as this gaze, which gives you additional effect accuracy, which is really valuable to have as well.
Okay, that's a lot more complicated than explaining what dot is, but let's actually throw her into battle so we can see it in action and people can understand what we're talking about. All right, so let's go in this Hoyan battle right here. I'm gonna go on 1-time speed so we can kind of walk through, but I want you guys to take a look at the stacks that are being dropped right here on the boss right off the bat. Hermes, take us through.
So the biggest thing is obviously, again, like we know this team, like we've talked about this team before. So the biggest thing that's really going to be important is going to be talking about like Shadow Sania's role. So right now she's just going to go in and she's going to extend those stacks. They're at 2 and 1 turns, and now they're at 3 and 2 turns. And she put an additional stack that also got its duration increased. Fengus with his counterattacks is going to put out more stacks. And the big thing is going to be getting all these additional stacks is really going to just help benefit, because when you get around, Oval's going to reapply some more stacks. Fengus is going to put out some more stacks. And then you're going to see Shadow Sania is going to extend them all again.
Yeah, and when we actually see this DOT actually hit, so much damage comes off. All right, like right there, we just lost, the boss just lost so much health on that because of the dot. And this run, I'm gonna go to 2 times speed right now just to speed it up. But typically we got one more big blast and this thing is going to be going down, right?
Yep. So this is actually the explosions. These are A3, which then takes out the boss in its entirety and just boom.
Beautiful, man. I love the team. I love how Shadow Sania was built out. I appreciate you coming through the channel again, sharing your wisdom with both me and everyone that's watching. Thanks so much for coming through. And I want to also remind everyone the video has been sponsored by Etheria Restart. And if you want to play the game, QR code link in the description. Hope to see you guys inside of Etheria Restart, and we'll see you guys in the next video.